What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Driving to Left Field podcast. My name is Jack. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at MLB Nerds. I'm here with my co-hosts Ryan and James. You can find Ryan on Twitter at Ryan Garcia ESM and James on Twitter at James Valentines. Today's podcast is going to be different from the last couple ones we've done. We're going to take a break from the position list here for today's podcast, and we'll answer a few of your questions that you submitted through Twitter or Instagram, either Instagram on my story at MLB Nerds or on Twitter under my tweet, also at MLB Nerds, and under the Deep Drive Pod Twitter. If you're not following that already, go follow at Deep Drive Pod on Twitter if you want to participate in future podcasts like this. We got 7 questions here. I'm going to go through them. I'll give my answer. I'll turn to Ryan and then James. And hopefully we can kind of come to maybe consensus if we agree. If not, then we'll come to we'll give our reasoning as to why. All right, let's get started here with question number 1, which is who has the best bullpen in Major League Baseball? And my answer is the Tampa Bay Rays. I think the Rays just have the best arms. Like there are teams out there that are good, but I think the Rays have the highest ceiling arms. Garrett Cleavinger is a very high ceiling arm. Pete Fairbanks, to me, is a top 5 reliever. Jason Adam last year I think he's going to regress a little bit, but he's still a really good player. They just have so many guys out there. And the way they shuffle their guys in, Taj Bradley will likely see out of the bullpen at some point this year. The way they shuffle their guys in and out is frankly unmatched in terms of bullpen management. And you can say what you want about them taking out starters too early, but ultimately the Rays bullpen is fantastic. They have a bunch of really good arms out there. They just care about stuff, and really with relievers, that's what matters. So, Ryan, who do you think is the best bullpen in Major League Baseball right now?
So, I was going to think about going with the Rays. I think that's kind of like a safe pick every year. But I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Dodgers here. One thing the Dodgers do really well is they suppress BABIP, and it's at a rate better than anyone else in baseball. It's not really close either. You look at the names currently on the depth chart, and I know that it goes beyond just who's on the depth chart, but, they're bottom of the barrel relievers currently healthy right now. Phil Bickford, Shelby Miller is not a guy with a track record, but we know based off of kind of the small sample we saw with him, I think it was with San Francisco, his stuff is still pretty good, right? And out the bullpen, I think it'll play pretty well. He has the fastball, cutter, slider. You have that cutter to kind of be that horizontal break bridge pitch. It kind of hovers towards the 0 line for a slider that sweeps a lot. You got guys like Yency Almonte, Gratterall. I'm not going to even try to pronounce the first name. I'm bad at that. Vesia, Phillips, Hudson. They're going to have Trinan come back at some point during the season, hopefully. They just have plenty of guys with high octane stuff, and I think that bullpen is going to perform the best this year. But Rays wouldn't be too far behind.
And James,
I'm gonna go with Cleveland because I think. What'd you say?
Good pick, I said.
Yeah, I think when you look at down their bullpen, like they definitely have like a pretty top heavy bullpen compared to the 2 that you just listed, but the top is amazing with Clase and Stefan and Eli Morgan and Sam Henches, and then obviously they also have James Karinchak, who
Stefan, yeah, Karinchak.
Karinchak is, questionable. I think didn't he have a couple of good months last year after being really bad in 2021. But
yeah, because he's got the sicky stuff back clearly.
Well, I don't care how he's doing it. I just care that he's doing it.
He's good, and he's going to probably keep it. So there's no reason he's going to be worse.
Right, and then De Los Santos, Sandlin, they have some depth there too. I think this is I think not the deepest, but definitely the strongest up top. And Class A is obviously a world class reliever, probably top 2 or 3 in the league.
I would agree with you. All right, so we got Rays, Dodgers, and Guardians. I would say that's pretty much the top 3. Even if really, I would say there's really nobody else that could put in that top 3 as well. The Yankees are good, but they're probably
Astros.
Astros also on that second tier. I don't really like Rafael Montero that much, so that's why I'm a little low on them. But I would say they're in that second tier with the Yankees. All right, question number 2 is who is the Yankees opening day shortstop going to be? And this is something I can kind of answer off the bat for me personally. What I've been hearing is that it's almost certainly going to be Oswald Peraza. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, barring injury, is probably not going to be on the roster, and Anthony Volpe will likely get some more time in AAA, which makes sense. But everything that I've heard, everybody I've talked to around the league that I know that would have this kind of knowledge has said it's likely going to be Peraza. But Volpe will get a shot. As of right now, Peraza is the heavy favorite. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, so I 100% agree. I think it's going to be Peraza, but I will say that, if you see Volpe, playing well in spring training and he starts playing more with the starters, then we might be having a little bit of a discussion here. But the third person in this debate is Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and quite frankly, I think he has a 0% shot to win it, again, barring injury. If Peraza goes down with injury, I think those odds go up, obviously. But as long as everyone stays healthy, there's really no reason for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to be in the discussion. He doesn't have the floor of Peraza. He doesn't have the ceiling of Volpe. And then when we're discussing Volpe, I would like to give him some time in AAA before I get him at the major league level. But I don't think it's going to take too long for him to force his way on the major league roster.
I would look at the Los Angeles Angels as a trade partner potentially for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa post the season or pre-season beginning. Just food for thought. Just look out for that. James, what do you think?
I mean, obviously I wouldn't know nearly as much as you guys, given that I'm not a Yankees fan. Personally, I think it should be Peraza. I don't think there should be a question unless you're ready to put Volpe up there, but I don't know if he's ready. It doesn't obviously we have no idea, right? And then Kiner-Falefa should not start. He shouldn't even play. He's just not a Major League Baseball player. He's just not. Maybe like a platoon bench guy. I don't know what his role there is. He's got an okay glove, I guess, but not really much, with the bat or anything. I think it's got to be Peraza. It's a pretty weak shortstop group to start the year. Obviously, Volpe coming up will make a difference there, but then again, we ranked him at second base, so I'm assuming you guys will think he's going to play second base.
That's what I think personally.
But then where's Gleyber Torres going to play? So
yeah, it's a crapshoot.
I mean, the by the end of the year, I assume that they'll be all three, LeMahieu, Volpe, and Torres in some capacity will be their infield, right? With Rizzo at first base. And so I think just expect that. I don't know who exactly is going to start on opening day, but I'd expect Peraza to get most of the starts to start the year.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, little competition can't hurt. And what's kind of been publicized to be, but again, my understanding is it's almost certainly going to be Peraza regardless of what happens in spring training, but nothing is certain just yet. And IKF, he can provide some value, off the bench. A lot of teams, their internal metrics from who I've talked to in certain organizations really like his glove a lot. They believe he's one of the better defensive players in the game. I personally don't see it. The public metrics don't see it, but obviously teams have their own, ways of evaluating defense, which is very understandable. All right, let's move on to question number 3 here. What changes do you think will be affected? What change do you think will be affected by, or most by the rule changes coming in 2023? So there's rule changes.
I typed this in wrong. It's supposed to say what players do you think will be most affected by the rule changes in 2023?
I think you're saying different concepts.
No. What players? Sorry,
right,
that's my fault.
What players will be affected the most? I don't really know. I mean, I think, I haven't really had time to think about this fully, but I'll say the general player archetype. Guys who steal bases or are fast will likely steal bases or bigger. I think Starlin Marte, maybe a guy like Anthony Volpe we're talking about just now. He's very fast, guy will steal bases for you. And then guys that have a hard time, getting back on the mound because 15 seconds with nobody on, 20 seconds with runners on. So pitch comm will definitely be critical for most players who use it. As for the shift, I mean, I honestly think the shift is very overhyped. You can still have guys right up the middle. You just can't have it'll definitely make changes for sure. The first guy comes to mind is Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo absolutely fucked by the shift. Again, so many dead pull hitters at this point where it's really too many to count. Corey Seager is a guy for sure as well. But I think the shift is going to still happen. Their teams will shift. You will still see teams put players not where the traditional spot is. You'll still see second baseman up the middle. You'll still see first baseman off the line. Considering or shortstop rather. It depends on obviously who's hitting, but because the rule is you only need two infielders on each side of the bag to start the at bats, so you can still move guys over. I think it's a little overhyped, but we'll still see some changes. I would say. Of course, there's a guy Joe Yell, like I said. And Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, so for the offensive side of the ball, Corey Seager, right? Corey Seager kind of stands out. He's the guy who I think gets the biggest change. You look at ground ball pitches as a whole, and you're kind of a little bit, not too worried, but kind of a couple of them are going to sneak through. That's whatever. I think, as you mentioned, the BABIP overall as a league is not going to go up dramatically. As for the bigger bases, there are guys who are those kind of borderline good enough to steal bases, but you don't want them running like crazy. I look at guys like Harrison Bader, Jose Altuve, guys who just they increased their stolen base totals last year. They didn't necessarily run crazy, but they had pretty good stolen base rates. Next year, they can kind of run wild, right? I'm kind of excited to see what John Birdie can do with bigger bases. He led the league in stolen base last year in 102 games, excuse me. There are a lot of guys. I think a lot of guys who like you wouldn't think, okay, they're fast, but we don't want them stealing a base. Maybe those guys perform a little bit better in BSR and stolen base metrics. And then for the pitch clock, Kenley Jansen's kind of the one guy I'm like super concerned about out of like all the relievers I think are good. Devin Williams and Gallegos definitely are up there as well in terms of pitch clock, but I think the difference is those are younger arms, and I don't necessarily think that, Kenley Jansen had a rough second half in the first place, so I'm already a little bit down on him. Projections don't like him that much. Stuff Plus likes him, but his command is not as good. So, there are some concerns that going into next year can kind of be the beginning of the end for him. But, having a pitch clock and having to, speed things up a little bit could hurt velocity, which hurts your stuff. I'm a little bit concerned about Jansen next year. The ballpark situation's worse than Atlanta. It's a lot of things going into one, and the pitch clock doesn't really help here.
And James.
Yeah, I mean, players wise, I think it's just like Jack said, it's the guys who steal a ton of bases, or for the relievers, I really don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. The pitch clock, I think it's something that they'll just kind of get used to pretty quickly. I don't know how like it would affect their actual pitching to have to get on the mound like that much quicker. I don't think it's gonna make that big of a difference. For teams, stolen bases, I think stolen bases are gonna be the big difference. I don't think the shift is gonna be that big, although having not being able to put that guy, against the lefty pull hitter in the middle, like roaming between second base and right field, is tough, right? For the defense, but I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference. I think the stolen bases will be a bigger difference. You look at like teams like the Orioles or the Rangers that steal a lot of bases with guys like I know Simeon and Garcia steal a ton for the Rangers, and then for Baltimore, I think Mateo and Mullins might have been the top two guys in the entire league. So if you look at like those type of teams, they'll definitely benefit. Teams like the Marlins, just teams that run a lot and players that run a lot. I think that's going to be the biggest difference we see next year.
All right. Question number 4. We got, what team do you expect to regress the most from 2022 to 2023? This one's easy for me, and it's not even that this is like a bad team by any means, but the Los Angeles Dodgers won 110 games last year, and they're probably not the favorite to win their division as of right now. I understand this is a salary reset year, and we'll get into that with the last question, and I'll elaborate more on that. But I think the Dodgers will be a good team, probably 92 wins, but that's still an 18 to 20 win decrease-ish or so. Maybe I'm being a little aggressive on them. They still have a great team, but they did lose, Trey Turner, probably their best offensive player. If you thought Mookie Betts, they're pretty close. Some of their pitchers, they did lose Tyler Anderson. Whether you think he's going to repeat that same success he did last year or not, he was still quite good last year. You're not going to really replace that. But they have so many good prospects. This could bite me in the ass again because they just have so many good prospects, and their player development is just so good. It's really hard to tell. Ryan, what team do you think will rest the most going into 2023?
Yeah, so I think the Dodgers are a good pick just because they won so many games last year. Yeah. Even if they were like the best projected team in baseball, they'd be projected to lose like 12 or 13 extra games just like that. But the team, I think, not just looking at raw win totals, but just kind of taking a step back, the Baltimore Orioles, they were an above 500 team last year, finished in 4th, were, I think 3 games back to the AL wild card. They're not going to get close to that. I think Boston's better than them. I think I look at, 2 AL Central teams, maybe 3, if you think, the White Sox, I think might just be the better team at this point, just more talent on the roster. Worse run, definitely a worse run team, but the talent on the roster definitely favors Chicago, at least a little slightly. I think I like the Angels more. I like the Seattle more. I like the Astros more. The way I look at it is I don't think the Orioles are going to be that 7th AL team kind of look on the outside looking at the postseason, just barely missing it. I think they're going to comfortably miss the playoffs. I think they're going to be selling to the deadline again. I just don't think this team's very good.
And James?
I think if we're looking at raw win total, I disagree with the Dodgers. I don't think that they're going to take that big of a step back. I'd be shocked if they don't win 100 games again. They're still loaded. Like even losing Turner and not making too many additions, I still think they're one of the best teams in the league. Even if the Padres are better than them, there's a good chance they both win 100 games. I think that the biggest decline in just pure wins might be the Boston Red Sox because they won 78 last year, and they're going to be really, really bad this year. They have no pitching. They lost their second best hitter. They lost their second best pitcher. They added Yoshida, which is like a nice addition, but we have no idea what he's going to look like translating into MLB, right, from Japan. So I think the Red Sox are a candidate to have the biggest fall off next season, but at the same time, like they already weren't that good. So I don't know if that's, if that really counts.
Got it. No, all those are valid. I like the Orioles pick a lot as well. I could understand the Red Sox. So number 5 here. What is your favorite all-time lineup? Now, in terms of ones that I've personally watched, because I am still on the younger side in terms of baseball fans, probably the 2019 Yankees, because I'm pretty impartial to them. The best one I've watched, probably the 2017 Astros, maybe 2019 Astros. Favorite all-time lineup to look back in terms of history. The Murderers Row Yankees, obviously, and I'm a Yankees fan, so that's kind of my personal bias as a favorite. So, I think it's an interesting question, Ryan. What do you think?
Yeah, so best, I think, just from my lifetime, it's got to be one of those 2 Astro teams, as you mentioned, the 17 or 19 Astros. As for the most, like the one you kind of like, I would say is like the best and is the best of my favorites. 09 Yankees is kind of like a cop out because I was the last Yankee team to win a World Series and they were fucking loaded top to bottom. But if I had to pick a non-Yankees team favorite lineup, I think I have to go with the way that the Minnesota Twins offense was in 2019 was just they set the record for home runs. It was just a fun offense. Like they just hit tanks, right? And I got to respect that. Home runs are fun to watch. Everyone can have their own opinion on home runs and whether they're, that much fun to watch or not. But that team was just, they just hit home runs left and right. It's kind of a shame that they didn't have any of the pitching required to go out and win in a postseason series. But I think that lineup, out of all non-Yankee lineups, was the most fun for me to watch.
I like that pick. James.
Well, for me, like as a Cubs fan, it's got to be the 2016 Cubs. But like you guys said, if we're going to go away from that, right? As far as I've seen, I think it's got to be the 17 or 19, probably 19 Astros. I think they were better, even though they didn't win. Those teams were so fun to watch with like Correa, Altuve, Springer, Alvarez, Tucker. That team had all of them, right? What'd you say?
Not as fun for me. Yeah, like still as a baseball fan, can appreciate it for sure.
And then I think actually this year that's going to change. I think for sure it's got to be this year's Padres are going to be so much fun with those 4 guys in the middle of the order: Tatis, Machado, Soto, and Bogarts. I just don't think we've ever seen a team that star-studded, at least top heavy, in the last 15, 20 years.
Can I change my answer to that then? Because that's 3 Dominican like Hall of Famers talent, like right there. Like I got to go with that. I was gonna mention the 04 Red Sox.
Like we haven't seen it yet, right? But I just can't imagine this team isn't fun.
I was gonna say the 04 Red Sox of Ortiz and Ramirez, but I felt like that would have been sacrilegious. So I'm just like, yeah, but all right, that's this 2023 Padres team, man. They're gonna be fun.
They will. Let's move to our penultimate question here. What is the most overrated team in each league going into 2023? My personal picks, these are kind of easy for me. I'll go in the AL, the Orioles. We touched on it earlier. Ryan did, at least. They're a good team. Like, they're a fine team, but they really have no pitching. And their offense, they have Adley Rutschman. They have kind of Cedric Mullins. He's okay. Like, he's not that great. They've got a couple other solid players. Austin Hayes is fine. But, like, really, they're not that good of a team. I guess I'll Gunnar Henderson as well. I'm a big Gunnar guy, as you guys know in my rankings. But ultimately, they don't really have much talent on that roster. So I'll go with them because players really, fans really hyping them up. I understand like why they're hyping them up, but I think they're a couple years away. They still got a lot of good prospects coming up. Mayo, Kauser, Kjerstad, amongst pitching, Gray Rod. Like they have so many guys. So they'll be fine in a couple of years. But for now, they didn't really do anything this offseason. And in the NL this offseason for me, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Phillies. They made the World Series last year, but like they barely made it into the playoffs to begin with, and then they kind of went on a run. The postseason is such a crapshoot. They were probably the worst, if not the second worst team in the playoffs to begin with, and they made it because they went on a run, which is great. That's what the playoffs are about. That's why it's fun. That's why they play the games. But, they added Trey Turner, who's a fantastic player. They added Greg Soto. They added Craig Kimbrell. But, like, I don't see this team winning more than 90 games at most, and I don't really think they're a top 5 team. I think we see too many people putting them in that upper echelon of team, and I'm not a fan of that personally. They're going to be fine. They'll be a good team. I think they'll probably sneak into the playoffs, but they won't be as good as they were last year. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, so for the AL, I was gonna say the Orioles, but I figured, you know what, let's kind of go with a little bit of a hotter take here. And also we talked about the Orioles enough, so I figured let's move away from that. I kind of feel bad at this point. Overrated doesn't mean bad. I want to clarify that before I say this.
Absolutely.
I think the Seattle Mariners, I think, are my pick here if I can't pick Baltimore. And my reason's quite simple. The Seattle Mariners, I don't think are in the same tier as the Yankees or the Astros. I don't. I don't think that they are, like, I don't look at them and say they're going to sneak up on the Astros this year. I think the Astros
Yeah, but does anyone think that?
I think there are enough people who think the Mariners can win the World Series this year. And on top, I don't think
I think they can, but then I don't think that makes them on the same tier.
You're right. I should have worded that differently. I think they can win the World Series. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Obviously, like that's not something I'm debating here. But do I think that they're better than the Blue Jays? No. Do I think they're better than the Rays? No.
Yes.
Do I think that they're better than Cleveland? Yes, but that's only because it's Cleveland. Like, I don't really like AL Central teams that much in terms of team ranking. Looking even at the NL, do I think they're better than the Braves or Mets? No. Do I think they're better than the Cardinals? Maybe. Kind of. It's kind of up in the air. Do I think they're better than any two top NL West teams? No. So when we're talking about that, they're kind of like a borderline top 10 team, right? And do we think that the Mariners did enough this offseason to get significantly better than what they were last year? Not really. Even if you look at the rotation, I like George Kirby a ton, but they have two guys in there as their 3 and their 4 who posted either a league average ERA when we adjust for their park, or were worse than league average. We're talking about Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray last year had a 100 ERA minus, not worse than league average. And Gilbert's kind of good. Like, Gilbert's good, but he's not great. I don't know how good he is. His ERA wasn't bad last year or anything like that, but the run prevention doesn't seem sustainable. He's a big fly ball guy. He gives up a lot of line drives. He doesn't give up a bunch of ground balls. It's a weird mix. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. I just don't view this team as in that elite tier. I don't view them in that first tier, and I think they're in the back end of that second tier. I don't think they're like, I think, again, we're ranking AL teams. I'm taking about 3 or 4, definitely 3 AL teams ahead of them. Blue Jays maybe, but I'm pretty confident in the Blue Jays over them. So that's for the Mariners. And then the National League, Phillies, for all the reasons Jack said.
And James.
Okay, so I'm actually going to start with the National League here because I strongly disagree with this Phillies take from both of you. I think you take this team last year, they already made the World Series, right? They did not do that well in the regular season. Bryce Harper played half the year. So that's definitely a factor there, right?
Bryce Harper's not playing again. He's going to come back in like August or whatever.
Is he really out for that one? Yeah, he's going to DH, I thought it wasn't.
Not. He's out until at least after the All-Star break.
At least after the All-Star break when he's going to DH.
So okay. So maybe I'm a little off there. But if you look at the rest of this Phillies lineup, they're still, from top to bottom, like one of the best lineups in the league, with Turner and Hoskins and Realmuto and Bohm. Like, they can all hit. Their defense is going to be a problem.
98 WRC plus, and he's 26. Like, it's not like next year's. It's like he's like 22. Like,
Stott can hit.
Can he?
Not very good either.
Castellanos can hit.
Pretty bad last year. He'll be good. I think he'll be better this year, but like he was.
Castellanos, you can sell me on.
I think Castellanos is a guy that you kind of have to expect more out of than last year, because last year was kind of like a worst case scenario for him. Obviously, adding Turner's huge. Schwarber can still hit. That's a huge.
Love Schwarber.
I missed him on the first go around there, and then obviously they're pitching. They've got Wheeler and Nola, who might be two of the best top 10 pitchers in the league. And then, they lack a little bit of depth, but I think that doesn't really matter come playoff time. And so maybe they won't, overrated wise, like maybe they won't win 100 games. But yeah, I think the most overrated team in the National League right now might be the Mets. They're getting a lot of hype. I think the Braves are going to win the division, and I hate the Braves. But I just, like, it depends on what the Mets get, like, out of Verlander compared to DeGrom, which like I said, I think he'll probably, like I said last time, Jack, I think we bet on this. Verlander will have a better year, like, war-wise, than DeGrom will. But I also think, like, you didn't, like, they're getting a lot of hype for their offseason, but all they really added was, Senga, one starter, and they kind of, like, they lost a few guys too. They won 100 games last year. They might win 100 again, but I think some people are putting them up in that, like, upper echelon of National League teams with with the Dodgers and Padres and Braves, and I think they're like a slight bit worse than those teams.
All right. And our final question here today is an interesting one, and I'll talk about, what I've heard. Where do you think Shohei Ohtani goes in the 2023 season? Now, it's been reported Mets, Dodgers, probably the two teams. My understanding is the Dodgers are the clear favorite right now. Why? They cleared all this money as a financial reset year to give him everything. He prefers the West Coast, and they're going to have money coming off the books as well at next year's, additionally. So I think they'll give Ohtani. They could give Ohtani like $50 million a year. I would not be surprised at all, even more maybe. The Mets will also be in there. Obviously, Steve Cohen spends a lot of money. He's not going to go down without a fight. Padres, you can never count out. I'd be surprised because they have to pay Machado. They also have to pay Soto. And they already paid.
Do they have to pay Machado? Like, could
no,
they let him walk and get
Machado.
Ohtani instead?
I guess they could. It would probably work out better for a more well-rounded team. But I think it's interesting. But I think it'll be the Dodgers personally. But things can change at the season. But as of right now, the Dodgers look like the clear favorite. Ryan, where do you think Ohtani goes?
I would bet my left arm that he goes to the Dodgers. Like, I'm super confident in that. Now, do I buy into this? He prefers the West Coast. There's no shot he goes to New York. Like, I don't buy into that fully.
No
I think
shot,
it,
yeah.
Right. Like, I think Ohtani prefers the West Coast. Don't get me wrong. But like, I'm not one of those people like the Mets have no shot, whatever. But I'm just so confident the Dodgers get him, which I feel like because it's me and I'm this confident, it's going to inherently ruin it in some way or another. But I feel like, as you mentioned, it's a financial reset year. I feel like, the Dodgers, they clearly are not going to run a payroll this low next year. Whenever they do something like this, it's because they have an intent. They have something lined up. They want to do something big. And I think Ohtani's kind of a big fish, right? Again,
so he's the biggest fish we've ever seen. So yeah, I would
right.
Say so.
No, seriously. Like, I don't know what the contract even is going to look like. I think the Mets are going to be willing to throw as much money as the Dodgers are, and that's definitely a factor here. But I don't know if the Dodgers really have a limit either. I think the Dodgers are willing to say, we'll throw an obscene amount of money, have them take up an obscene amount of payroll or of the luxury tax hit next year to secure him on that team. And that's the right play to build around. That helps their pitching. That helps their lineup. The DH in the National League, there's no more, he can't play for a National League team. I think he goes to the National League first off. I don't think an AL team has a shot here. The Yankees know. I mean, who else in the AL really spends like that? So yeah, I think it comes down to Dodgers, Mets, Padres. I know you guys mentioned them as like I just don't see it happening there either. So yeah.
And James, but you can't say the Cubs.
Well, I can, but I think
the
the
Cubs
more
are not a bad pick.
I mean, they'll definitely have the money to do it. It's just the question is, like, are they going to do it, right? They'll throw money out there, but I don't think that's going to happen. You look at everything the Dodgers do is so calculated, right? They're not doing this for nothing. They're definitely going to throw as much as they can out at Ohtani, but I'm gonna go with the Mets. I think Cohen will get it done, but he did not get it done this year with Correa, so we'll see. But like the Mets are just willing to throw money at like anything, right? And then you throw. You get the best, arguably best, baseball player we've ever seen. Yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely say that the Mets will be in the running. I think the whole West Coast bias thing, like that Ohtani might have, is a little bit outdated for sure, because like that was a storyline 5 years ago when he was first signing coming from Japan, but I think it's a little different now that he's like been in LA for 5 years, right? And and part of the reason why they were saying that is that he wants to be near like a pretty Asian community, and there's a lot on the West Coast, but there's one in New York too. So I don't think that's like that big of an issue anymore. I think it just comes down to who throws more money. And this bidding war could go into like what would this Ohtani contract look like? Could he get 10 years for $50 million a year? Could he get more than that?
More, honestly, I think we could see
like can he get like 600 million for 12 years?
I have no idea, but I would not be surprised at anything, to be honest with you.
I don't think there's a number short of $800 million that I'd be surprised by.
I'd be stunned by 700 million. That would be like what? That would be nearly 2 times as much as Trout got. Like, I think we're not too. I think
no, two times Trout got 440.
I'd say nearly.
No, he got nearly. I thought he got 465.
I didn't. He got four. First of all, I said nearly, and two, I don't think
Yeah,
it was 460.
700 is not nearly 930.
You said anything short of 800 million. So 799 million is pretty close to 900 million. We're talking about that much money in terms of just overall percentages. Like I'm not
Yeah, we're
too
talking
off.
about $100 million. That's nothing to Ryan. Ryan's got
No,
so much
it's
money.
I like
$100 million. That's pocket change to Ryan Garcia.
All right. Well, I think the point here is Otani's gonna make a lot of money, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the possibility of seeing something like that. All right, that's gonna do it for this episode of the Deep Drive in Left Field podcast. If you like what you saw, please consider giving us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Make sure to subscribe to our new YouTube channel at a Drive in a Deep Left Field podcast if you're not already. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Deep Drive Pod. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MLB Nerds. Follow Ryan on Twitter at Ryan Garcia ESM. Follow James on Twitter at James Valentinas. It's been a Deep Drive in the Left Field, and we will see you in episode number 81.
81. You got it. That's rare.